Hi, everyone. It's Craig Siphers here with the Montana Real Estate Channel, brought to you by Siphers Family Real Estate. And today we're diving into something that shapes the very landscape of the Bitterroot Valley, conservation easements. And if you've ever wondered what they are, how they work, or how they might affect buying or selling property in Montana, this is the video for you. Now, we're joined by Stephanie Sipe, the Communications Director at the Bitterroot Land Trust, which is a local nonprofit doing vital work to preserve the open spaces, working farms, and iconic views that make this valley so special. So stick around, and we're going to unpack how conservation easements impact landowners, protect our natural resources, and even play a role in real estate decisions. So let's get started. So Stephanie, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right. Well, let's get cracking right now. Can you give us a quick overview of the Bitterroot Land Trust and its mission?
The Bitterroot Land Trust, we are, as you said, a local nonprofit organization. We serve the Bitterroot Valley, Ravalli County, all the way from Lolo down to Sula and everywhere in between. And we partner with willing landowners to protect, as you said, everything that makes this valley the amazing, beautiful place it is to be. That's agricultural properties, family farms and ranches, wildlife habitat, the Bitterroot River and stream frontage, our clean drinking water, and then opportunities for public recreation and access to public lands for hiking, hunting, fishing, and all the great ways we like to spend our time out here.
Well, that's a big mission. What kind of properties does the BRLT typically work with?
Yeah, so our typical properties that we work with, every property is unique, but kind of our bread and butter are those working farm and ranch lands and agricultural properties, which also in turn, as you know, share habitat for wildlife and movement of the native species throughout the valley. So it's usually, those larger parcels that have
Larger, yeah.
open space, help feed our communities. So that's our typical properties, as well as some riverfront parks and places
Aye.
to get out and play.
Excellent. Well, now, how long has Bitterroot Land Trust been active in the Bitterroot Valley, and how much land has been conserved to date?
So we were started in 1997. So we were started by a group of concerned community members that saw the valley changing even back then, and came together to see how we could help support landowners who wanted to protect their properties from subdivision or threat of development. So we've been around for since 1997, and to date we've conserved over 14,200 acres in perpetuity in the Bitterroot Valley. So pretty
Terrific.
exciting.
Yes, it is. And I have to tell you, and of course, I've been a big supporter of BRLT, but I also was a founding member on the Open Lands Board. And
Excellent.
so that was
Yes.
very exciting getting involved at that level. Now, what does the process look like when a landowner approaches the land trust about potential conservation easement?
So our process is just as you said, the landowners approach the land trust. We never go and solicit, people to pursue this type of thing. So the interested landowners meet with the land trust, learn more about the conservation easement process, share with us what their intentions are for preserving the property. Why do they want to make this decision? And when you're dealing with things in perpetuity, that's forever. So that's a big decision to make. So it's
Right.
a multi-year process. Every project is different.
Yeah.
So we meet with the landowners. We have opportunities for our staff and our board of directors, our lands committee, to visit the properties several times, throughout the process. If we have funders that are interested in funding this, like you just mentioned, the Open Lands Board, the Valley County Open Lands Bond is a recently renewed $10 million county approved bond that allocates dollars to select properties. So for many of our projects, that helps fund it. So the Open Lands Board comes and visits the property. An evaluation of conservation values are taken. So How,
Right.
what's the land used for now? Agriculture, how productive is the land? What are the soils? So there's science that goes in behind it. What species have been seen out here? And as you know, living here for a long time, there's a ton of, birds of, species of concern, elk, deer, um, everything in between. So that's all evaluated, and then at the end of it, a long process. The legal agreement typically is the conservation easement is signed through our legal department and with title review, and then we ultimately own the development rights of the property.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yes.
So for those viewers who are not familiar with exactly, a conservation easement, and you kind of highlighted a little bit that you own the development rights on it, but maybe give us exactly a conservation easement. What is it?
Yeah, so it's a legally binding agreement between a landowner and an entity or organization such as the Bitterroot Land Trust. You need to have an approved organization that's able to engage in this scope of the scope of this work. And it's an agreement that strictly outlines what the land can be used for in the future. And again, every project is different. It's not a one size fits all, but ultimately, generally speaking, the easement relinquishes future development rights and the selling of individual parcels on a property. So a 100-acre property in the future can't get sold off in 10-acre parcels. It stays together intact as one. And again, that word in perpetuity, forever. So
Right.
it's a very it's a great tool for landowners who want to protect their properties. It's not the right tool for every family, but it is one that we've seen great success here in the Bitterroot and across the country as well.
Well, so when we talk about that, so we're giving up the development rights, holds everything, in a single piece, can't be split, that sort of thing. There are some rights that property owners can retain, right?
Yes,
So they might have put the conservation easement in there, but say another couple, two, three home sites as an example.
yes, that's great. So a great point to bring up. We have part of the easement is building in these building envelope sites, and a landowner can choose to exclude 1 acre, 5 acre, 10 acres more from the easement, so that in the future, let's say they want to put up an arena, a new pole barn, another house, another couple of houses, they identify and they work with the land trust to identify the best place to do that.
Right.
Typically, that's going to be in a corner area, not right in the middle of a highly productive alfalfa field or something like that.
Yeah.
But the easements themselves have really changed, as the years have gone on since, easements have been around. They've gotten less restrictive, less of a one size fits all model, and really working with the goals of that individual family and helping with the succession planning for the future. So it's a neat thing to be able to work with those landowners that they can still develop. It's just kind of restricting where, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
right. And so generationally, we might have a ranch and we might want to plan for our children to have a home on it in the future. Now, here's a question. You mentioned perpetuity. I'm real good at saying
I,
that. And so it's a permanent deal. I mean, this is important to recognize, but can they be amended? What's the story there?
yeah, so the amendment process, if a landowner wants to change something for the terms of the easement, it's really hard to do. It is a legal document. Since the conservation easement stays with the property in perpetuity, if someone buys a property that already has a conservation easement on it and for whatever reason wants to change, again, it's not recommended, it's not impossible, but it's something that takes a lot of work to get done.
Well, and with regard to that, how are conservation easements enforced over time? I mean, who ensures that the terms of this agreement are maintained?
Yeah, so we, as part of our responsibility and dedication to our all of the conservation easements that we partner with landowners to complete, Part of our end of upholding the deal is engaging with our stewardship department each year. Our stewardship team visits each property. So we have, I believe, 62 properties right now that are conserved in the valley, provides resources if there's a weed issue going on, helps to partner landowners with different organizations in the valley to help provide support. Make sure that there hasn't been a Starbucks drive-through plopped down right in the middle of it, which and it's very rare that there ever is a violation. But making sure that the landowners have the resources they need, particularly new landowners who, are looking for ways to ensure that their land stays healthy and productive. So our stewardship team, that's their camp, is to make sure we're
And,
there to provide resources, and also, as you brought up, just enforce that the easement is being
yeah.
upheld.
And that review is done annually then.
Yep.
Okay. Now, as a landowner, why would somebody choose to, for example, put their property in a conservation easement, do you think?
Yeah, so part of our process is requesting a letter of intent from the families to learn just that. Why is your family pursuing this? And I would say 10 out of 10 times the love of the land, the tie to the land, the appreciation for our valley's unique way of life and rural agricultural presence. People really respect that and acknowledge that places like the Bitterroot don't exist everywhere.
Yeah,
There's a
right.
lot of small towns, a lot of valleys that have, unfortunately really been hit hard with development and growth, and just a desire to protect the place that we all love. And that's the driving force. I think, financial compensation, if you look at a landowner who could sell to a developer for millions of, even billions of dollars, and they're getting calls weekly, with offers on the table, it's not about the money. And community, yeah, fortunately for our community, that theme and message is helping to protect the way it looks now forever.
You know, what should prospective buyers of a conservation easement property be, kind of aware of when they purchase? I mean, we've talked about the fact that you've got this legal document and you have some responsibilities. Uh, I guess that would be effectively the thing that you just need to be aware of, right?
I would say make sure that you read the easement, make sure you understand the easement. If you have an attorney or other advisors, even your real estate agent, who can help to make sure that all of your questions are asked and answered, and making sure that, yeah, that understanding is there. Contacting the land trust if there's any questions, and either your realtor can do that. We get calls, with just that. Hi, I have a prospective buyer. What's the conservation easement deal? What can they and can't they do? I think just being fully aware of those restrictions, and also, I mean, having views that are protected and the open space. If you're looking to purchase a home adjacent or next to a conservation easement property, that's a huge bonus,
Right.
because you're, going to just continue to benefit from that tool as a
Yeah. I
neighbor.
mean, it
So,
really adds value to your neighbors in almost every scenario I can think of.
yeah.
Can you, I mean, yeah, have you ever encountered kind of problems with new buyers? I mean, been the experience of the land trust on that?
Yeah, the experience has been great. We're here to support and be a resource for new buyers. We have every year landowner barbecue, and we interact with the 62 families, and it's a good way to introduce new landowners to ones who've been doing it here for 4 or 5 generations. It's been a great opportunity, and people who respect and appreciate this tool. There's a lot of support out there. I guess just for land management and health and stock management, and just asking questions. Hey, what do you do when the ditch, gets clogged up? How do you irrigate? And just, some of those troubleshooting too is just a good family to be a part of.
Right. Well, and we've talked a little bit about valuation. From your perspective, and I can speak to a little bit of this, but I wanted to get your kind of viewpoint from the land trust. When you're talking with landowners, I'm sure this comes up as to how the conservation easement affects, the market value of the property, both negatively or positively. What do you guys? I'm sure you talk about that with landowners.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting too. I mean, for example, looking at the younger generation that wants to get into farming and ranching, loves this way of life here in the valley. I mean, there's people who are just, just really dying to live this way of life, but may not be able to afford the couple 100-acre ranch, right?
Right.
So the value of a property that has a conservation easement on it drops because those development opportunities have dropped, right? And so working with landowners, we have a great a couple, the Kerrs Lakes out in the Burnt Fork. Dan
Right.
and Sari, this is a great story. So they were branch managers for their for a neighbor, and she was getting up there in years. She had no family to pass the ranch on to. She wanted it to stay in working hands. She wanted it to go to somebody in agriculture. So by placing the conservation easement on the ranch, it was able to lower the value to where this ranching couple could purchase it. And now they just had their second kiddo, and so they're, just starting this legacy of agriculture that continues from the original owner's family. So it's a cool deal for that succession planning. The average age of farmers and ranchers is not getting
Yeah.
any younger. So
Right.
it's good to look at, when planning for the future, how can we continue to maintain this industry, which is a huge economic driver for Montana. Agriculture is the number one
Agriculture. Yeah.
industry. How do we
Well,
continue to feed our community? So,
yeah, and another excellent point is, the we take a look at the tourism industry and how it impacts, and the fact that you have this open space, views, and supporting wildlife. Those are, the natural beauty is preserved when we have these areas conserved. In terms of what Bitterroot Land Trust's current priorities or focus areas, do you have some thoughts on that?
yeah, so we just our staff and board of directors just finished up a 5-year strategic plan where we are looking ahead 5 years down the road. Those agricultural family farms and ranches, those continue to be, as I mentioned earlier, our real core areas of work. Um, we also just ended a successful fundraising campaign to bring a new nature park to Victor. So it was a neat deal. Yep. So the Groff family, they have roots in Victor on this ranch since the late 1800s. Multi-generational ranching family. They have 3 different properties in the Victor area, running cows on them and hay, and then excellent elk habitat. And they approached the land trust and said, "Hey, we have this corner of our property. It's a great hill. We've always let the community come sled on it in the
Yeah.
winter. What if we made it a permanent deal so they could always have access? Could we partner with you to do that?" Absolutely. So not only are they conserving their family farm and timber ranch, now a 21-acre corner of the property will be a new nature park for the community. So
Yeah,
it's
the whole community gets use out of it,
yeah,
and also an open space. Speaking of Victor, of course, the Buchers recently did a large conservation on the old Bucher property there in Victor, and of course I uh, have had a number of close friends and clients of mine, like for example, Dick and Karen Smith out in the Burnt Fork, which is one of the big areas of conservation in the Bitterroot Valley, and of course my great friends Doug and Janice Estelle. I'm super proud of what they've done. In terms of what folks can do to support a Bitterroot Land Trust, and they're not landowners, kind of if you can touch on that a little bit.
yeah, that's a great question. And to go back to your comments just about that, those conservation neighborhoods in the Burnt Fork, we were just driving around there yesterday, taking some people out just to show them. So we've conserved over 7,000 acres in the Burnt Fork and 7 miles of contiguous ranches that are next to each other that have been protected. So that's a national model for conservation. That doesn't happen everywhere. And so the Burnt Fork really has put conservation neighborhoods like that on the map because it's when you talk about wildlife corridor from the Sapphires all the way almost to Lee Metcalf National Wildlife Refuge. I mean, it
Right.
is impressive. And those neighbors talking to each other over the fence line and having belief in this work is how that that got done. So that's an amazing model. But for people to support the land trust, so we are a nonprofit. A majority of our funding to be able to compensate landowners for the conservation easements is from individual community support. So that's neighborhood donations, um, people supporting us by attending our events, um, supporting initiatives such as the Groff Family Park. So individual donations is a huge way to support the land trust. Another way is volunteering your time. If you don't, have the money to give, the time is extremely valuable. We have an annual event each year, the Barn Dance, which is held at a new conservation easement each year.
Uh, well, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today and shedding light on the important work of the Bitterroot Land Trust. And I know from my standpoint, the Siphers Family Real Estate, my daughter Erica, my sister Shar, we are sponsors, and that's kind of how we help support that, and then talk to our clients, obviously, who have potentially eligible property, and really encourage them to get involved. And if you're a landowner and curious about conservation, if you're a buyer interested in protecting properties, or just someone who loves the Bitterroot Valley and wants it to stay beautiful, then of course we encourage you to check out the Bitterroot Land Trust, and we'll drop a link in the description down below to you folks. So, if somebody wants to learn a little more about it, they can do so. And as always, if you're thinking about buying or selling real estate in Western Montana, reach out to us at Siphers Family Real Estate. We've been here helping folks since 1966, and we're here to help you navigate the process and find that perfect Montana property. And thanks, Stephanie. Sure appreciate it.
Thank you, Craig. And yeah, anytime. Our office is located 400 West Main Street in Hamilton in the Creamery Building. Please drop in if you're interested or follow the link below. We would love to chat more with anybody who's interested or just wants to learn more about the process. So thank you so
Excellent.
much.